Simply put, your knife skills suck because you haven't been given all the information. I bet you've been told how to hold a knife and shown how to do the choo-choo, but that was that and they left you there. But what if I told you everything you know about using a knife was wrong? For beginners, that is. Everything in this video is meant for beginners and people really trying to improve their knife skills. How you grip a knife is the first thing we should get out of the way, and there's pretty much no debate here. You're gonna wrap your fingers around the handle and with your thumb and index finger pinch the blade. This is the most comfortable way and the most stable way to hold a knife. And once you get good with this, then you can play around with that a little bit, but until then, hold it like this. And the next thing to get out the way first, and arguably the most important thing, is your non-dominant hand's finger placement. You will never get good at knife cuts if you don't have good finger placement, because what good is fast cutting if you can't be precise with it? And so you're gonna make a fist with your non-dominant hand, but stop halfway. And then you're gonna place that, whatever you're cutting, and press the blade of the knife like up against your knuckles, and then cut, move your hand back, place your knife up against the knuckles, cut, and so on. I know this feels like you're doing too much or slow, but it just feels like that at the beginning. Once you get used to it, you don't even have to think about it or even look at it. And it's a cool party trick for people that don't have good knife skills. They'll all be impressed. They always are. How you use a knife has a lot of variables, some of them being what knife are you using, what are you cutting, and so on. But I'm going to go over these two techniques that I feel any beginner should practice that will get you like 99% of the way. And the first one that I'm going to talk about is the push method. The push method is when you have your knife horizontal. Yeah. When you have your knife horizontal with the cutting board, not always, you can have your tip pointing kind of down, but your knife isn't touching the cutting board, and you're gonna push forward and down. You can put your whole body weight into it. And this is, my opinion, the easiest, safest, and most beginner-friendly way to cut. This method of cutting is geared towards straighter blades because straighter blades will make better contact with the cutting board this way. So knives like Santoku or this Chinese chef knife, and we'll go over knives later in the video. But for now, the problem with Western chef knife or rounded blades with this method is that if you go in this straight motion, sometimes it won't cut all the way through. Knives I recommend for this are the Santoku and the Chinese chef knife because they have straighter blades. I'll go over more of that later. Ease is a 5 out of 5. This is, in my opinion, the easiest way to cut. Anyone can do it, and this is me with my non-dominant hand. Next, we have everyone's favorite is the choo-choo. And this is when you have the point of your blade still on the cutting board and you're going back and forth, kind of like choo-choo train on the thing that moves the wheel. Whatever, you know what I'm talking about. This is good for like faster, shorter vegetables and meats. For instance, I wouldn't try to cut or slice an onion like this. It'd be uncomfortable with your arm going like that high. This is really geared toward the Western chef knife. Anything with a exaggerated belly rounded blade will be really good for this motion. Knives, like I said, this is best suited for a Western chef knife. They do sell Santokus now that are a little bit more rounded. Ease, it's a 3 out of 5. It isn't hard, but it does require a slight learning curve and getting used to the proper movement. A lot of times you see beginners doing this, what I call the pseudo choo-choo, where they're not actually going back and forth. They're just going up and down, lifting the back of the blade, and it looks kind of funny. I think this method really shines for shorter herbs and stuff like that, smaller things. And the way I think about it is a lot like jump roping. You know when beginners jump rope, they jump really high or jump twice, but you see a professional boxer or an athlete jump rope and their feet barely lift off the ground. That's how I think about this method. It is best when you can barely see it and it's not so exaggerated. So strive for that. Now that you know how to use a knife, which knife should you choose? And there are 3 knives that I recommend that are the most versatile. We have the Western chef knife, the Santoku, and the Chinese chef knife. And any one of these 3, if you just wanted to buy one of the knives, or if you just wanted to buy one knife in general, any one of these 3 will do all the jobs that you need it to. First, we have the Western chef knife. This is what you think of when you think kitchen knife. This has the more rounded belly, long, most of them around 8 inches. This is really geared toward the choo-choo and rocking movements. So if you do a lot of those movements and this is the knife you should choose, I recommend getting the 8-inch chef knife from Victorinox. I'll have an affiliate link in the description if you want to pick one up and support me at the same time. But I had one of these, I don't have one anymore. I forgot it at work one day and someone stole it. But yeah, it was by far the sharpest knife that I've ever used straight out of the box. I don't know why, it's a pretty cheap knife, around $50, but it was the sharpest knife that I've ever had straight out the box. Next we have the Santoku, and this is my favorite. This is commonly referred to as the Japanese chef knife, and usually shorter. This is really geared toward the push movement. They do sell, like I said, more rounded ones for the Choo-choo, but yeah, they usually have a straighter blade. But if you buy one, I recommend the size from 165 millimeter to 180 millimeter. That's around 6.5 to 7 inches. And I say millimeter because the Japanese knives are measured in millimeters. This one was around $112. And if you hear that price and think that's ridiculous, a knife that lasts you thousands and thousands of hours of abuse, in my opinion, is worth it. I've had this one for like the past 4 or 5 restaurants, from cutting hundreds of pounds of vegetables to cutting sushi rolls. Works perfectly, feels exactly the same as when I got it. I put the American Test Kitchen recommendation in the description because when in doubt, I always trust them. In my opinion, the most underrated knife is the Chinese chef knife. This looks like a cleaver, but it is not a cleaver. Cleavers are thicker, heavier, geared toward bones. This is thinner, lighter, and meant for vegetables and meats and pretty much everything except bones, obviously. I guess you can cut thinner bones like fish bones, but not thick bones. This has a really wide blade and straighter edge. I didn't have one. I've used one in the past and I really liked it, but I wanted to try one to be able to recommend, and I was actually pleasantly surprised by this 7-inch Victorinox Chinese chef knife. And I really like it because usually when I cook, I have a separate bench scraper to pick up vegetables and stuff, throw stuff in the pot faster. And with this knife, I don't need to have a separate bench scraper. I just use the knife. I just use the blade. I can't talk about knives and how to use a knife without talking about how to keep it sharp. There are 2 common methods to sharpen your knife. We have the whetstone and the electric sharpener. When I started out, I bought a cheap double-sided whetstone on Amazon and watched Perfection on YouTube. And shout out to him, he taught me everything that I know from his videos. And he also has a website where he sells Japanese knives directly from the knife makers. I'm not sponsored by him at all. I really like his stuff. I really like the website. I like all the knives on there. And the knives get here in like 2 days. So if you head over there, let him know I sent you and maybe I'll get sponsored. Hopefully. One day. Please. But anyways, that's how I started sharpening my knives. Eventually I started working so much that I felt like I didn't have time to hand sharpen my knife. Not that it takes forever. It takes like, I don't know, depending on how good you are, 10 to 20 minutes and how dull the knife is. So I bought an electric knife sharpener and I've been very pleased with it. I will say it does leave some marks on it when you pass it through, but every knife is gonna get some damage over time if you're using it. I wouldn't use really expensive knives on the knife sharpener. I did that by hand. But most of the knives that I use are stainless steel knives and knives around the $100 price point. As for home cooking, I haven't had to use it in like the past 5 months. If you're a home cook, you don't really have to worry about edge retention. It's gonna be a while till you have to sharpen, depending on how much you cook at home and like what kind of stuff you are cooking. If you're like chopping things up every day or simple stuff. There's no right or wrong. If you do want to sharpen your knife by hand, I do think it's a good skill to have. And if you don't want to do that and just want to sharpen your knife on a machine or electric knife sharpener, then there's nothing wrong with it in my opinion. All right, so what not to buy? Do not buy knives with bolsters. Bolsters are that thick piece of metal that connect a knife blade to the handle, and I have no conceivable idea as to why you need one. I hate knives with bolsters. They suck. They're just straight up booty. Maybe someone's out there and they love knives with bolsters. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I just hate them. They get in the way when you're cutting. They get in the way when you sharpen knives. And eventually you'll be left with this like deformed blade that doesn't go all the way to the edge.
What the hell? Oh my God.
And that'll leave your knife cuts looking whack.
What the hell?
That leads me into my next don't buy, which is these V knife sharpeners. They take off way too much metal and you'll be quickly left with a deformed blade.
What the heck?
Don't buy super expensive knives. I would stay away from anything over $150 for now as a beginner. Once you get more experience and know what kind of knives, what kind of steel knife handle you like, I just wouldn't buy one, because then if you buy one that you don't like, it just feels like a waste of money. All right, this is where you have to promise me not to get your panties in a twist. Do not buy Dale Strong as a beginner. I know it sounds weird because they kind of seem like a beginner-friendly knife brand. But they are overpriced. When I was starting, I did buy Dale Strong. I bought a couple knives over $100 from Dale Strong, and I thought they were cool. I thought I was a cool guy. I thought I was walking around with some pretty cool knives. Later, when I started getting into nice knives, Japanese knives, I realized, and you can feel the difference, the Dale Strong knives are way less quality at the same price that you can get Japanese knives or nicer knives. Same price, way different quality. And I'm not saying that every Dale Strong knife is like booty, but I can tell the difference. I can tell which ones are worth it and which ones aren't. But as a beginner, I couldn't. And so I just would stay wary of that and recommend not to buy those knives. The next thing is alternative knife sharpeners. I haven't tried all of them, so I'm not gonna tell you to don't buy them. I'm just gonna say be wary of them. I haven't tried the little rolly ones or anything like that, so I don't know if they're good. But I did buy one of those like precision knife sharpeners that come with the little whetstones, and like you have to put your knife on it and then go back and forth, and it was just the whole thing. And I never touched it afterward. And it was like over $200, I'm pretty sure. That was just a waste of money. You can tell that I made some pretty bad decisions back then, but I say this so that you don't have to make the same decisions I did. Lastly, don't buy anything you can't afford. Don't feel like you have to buy anything that I say or recommend. You do not have to buy anything special to make good food. My mom, for the longest time, was using the cheapest knives and pots and pans and made the best food that I have ever had. I know that was a lot, but in my opinion, what you should buy is a knife that you like and a cheap leather strap to keep your knife sharp, and practice, practice, practice. Later, when you actually have to sharpen your knife, you can think about whetstone versus electric knife sharpener. And if you take away anything from this video, please, for the love of God, stay away from
What the hell? Oh my God, no way.